All right, guys, welcome to the inaugural Cage Potatoes MMA show, podcast / YouTube show.
Woo!
Yeah, I am Paul, the P in the Cage Potato. My co-host here is Connor, my brother in MMA and also literal brother. So, yeah, this has been a huge week for MMA. It's probably the biggest card of the year, certainly so far. Poirier, McGregor 2. And the MMA gods have certainly blessed us with a lot of weird stuff that's been happening.
Yeah, no doubt about it, Paul. And before we get to and everything, I think we should just back this up a little bit. We are two literal brothers who have been watching MMA for a long time. You know the first MMA fight I ever watched?
No, I actually don't.
Okay, so it was Kimbo Slice versus James Thompson at your college graduation. We were staying in the hotel. We put on CBS, and I watched that man's ear explode, and I've been hooked ever since. So thanks to this guy right here, I've followed MMA as closely as I think anyone can for the last 13 or so years. Every time you and I are together, we're yupping it up about the fights. We're talking in and out the cage. So we figured, why not get together? Let's just get on video, and maybe no one's going to watch this, Paul. I don't know. But you and I are going to have some fun. We're going to talk about some fights. We're going to look at some crazy stuff on Twitter. We're going to look at some betting lines, and just whatever the hell we want to talk about with MMA. And I'm excited.
Yeah, no, so am I. I actually didn't know that your first fight you ever saw was Kimbo James Thompson. Because it's funny, Strikeforce, you might have watched a fixed fight. There's like a really reasonable chance that fight was either partially or fully fixed.
Well, what better way to get introduced to MMA than with that? So.
Yeah, right. Old Elite XC, man. They were shady operators for sure.
Yeah, well, we won't rag on Coker and crew too much just yet, but yeah, dude, we got a really big card ahead of us this weekend. It feels like there's a lot on the line for both guys, and certainly a lot of undercard fights to get excited about. So let's get into it.
Yeah. But even before we talk about the upcoming card, I think it's worth discussing the news in the heavyweight division with Ngannou having an interim belt created basically right underneath the guy's nose within, what's it been? 30 days, 90 days since his last
3
fight?
months since his last his title victory over Stipe. So it's fair to say that we've seen a much longer gap between heavyweight title defenses, and no such thing as interim belt. But what Dana wants, Dana gets, and I think that's what we have on our hands here. And it's a real shame because, Francis is just a guy, you can't help but love him. He's got a great story. I mean, the man was working salt mines, and here he is, champ of the world. Seemed like everything was against him. He finally gets his chance, his rematch, and takes care of business. And here we go. We're going to try and pretend that there's two other guys who should be wearing heavyweight strap.
Yeah, I understand from a business perspective what the UFC and WME group are seeing, right? The heavyweight division is one of the most followed. It gets people excited. It's, the biggest, baddest dudes on the planet, right? Or the most powerful, right? Fans know pound for pound is the real measure of skill, but the fan that's knocking back natty lights in the bar and yelling,
Whoa.
Stand them up.
Let's not get too hard on natty lights here, all right? I got a nice IPA here, all right? But I'm not above some natty lights.
That's true. Though as Pennsylvanians and as Pitt grads, our loyalty has to be to Yingling.
Well, I see light if we're getting real specific, but we are Eastern Pennsylvanians. We are Philadelphians, if I do say so.
Oh yeah. Yeah, well, I'm not, like I said, not above throwing some shade at Natty Light. But yeah, I think the Joe Six-Pack fan, cares a lot about the heavyweight division, and they want to see title fights. And the UFC has shown that it will create as many belts, interim, new divisions, whatever, so that belts are always on the line and always changing hands. That said, I think the UFC, and this is a broader complaint that I have, I think they're diluting their product a lot, actually, both in volume and in the, I don't want to say the quality of the fight cards, but the UFC, I think, invests less in their fighters. And so, I think some of this is actually a huge mistake. I think they should, like you said, Ngannou's he's a great fighter, but he's also a great guy and a great story. And instead of taking time and energy and money to promote the Ngannou story between fights, because now he's not in camp, now he has time. Instead, they're trying to put on 2 more fighters, 2 more heavyweights to get people talking. I don't know if it's a great long-term business decision.
Yeah, and it's hard to say what's the best long-term move, but the UFC in these last 3-4 years since WME has taken over, it's just been about where can they squeeze another dollar at the next turn. And I think I saw an MMA Junkie piece this last week talking about there was a Morgan Stanley analysis just on the UFC as a WME product, and just talking about some of the points where they could maybe increase their revenue, and one of those things was site fees, which is something that the UFC I guess is kind of moving towards, so they can actually create a contract with a venue and commit themselves to X amount of shows, X amount of events, for however many years. I'm not sure the specifics, but I know for a fact that the venue in Houston that they're fighting at is one of the latest signings that they've made. And obviously Derek Lewis being, the big name in Houston, H-Town's finest. They just wanted to put some shiny metal on the table. But I mean, we really got to ask ourselves at what cost, and why not make that the main event? And you got Amanda Nunes who's fighting on that card, and now she's getting bumped down a notch. And I don't know. All respect to Cyril Gahn and Derek Lewis, but man, I hope you don't burn a bridge with Francis, because that guy is a star. That guy is he's the scariest guy in the fight game right now, and I just don't want to lose him.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know the status of his contract off the top of my head, if he's close to renegotiation or not. But yeah, this could definitely be the UFC trying to send a negotiation message, if that's the case, of letting Ngannou and his management know that, hey, we can find other stars, other people of your caliber. But again, to me, it just feels so short-sighted, because the UFC already has a bargain on its athletes compared to other sports. Ngannou tier athletes, the top of the top, 5% of players in the top professional league. In baseball, you're talking hundreds of millions of dollars. Every other sport, that's what they command. And you're paying out Ngannou, what, $200,000-$300,000 a fight, maybe? He can't even get
disclosed. I'm sure he's making more than that, or at least he better be.
Yeah, I hope so, but it's still nothing close to, baseball level salaries. And so,
or even the Tyson Furies of the world.
Yeah. And again, not to get too far off the agenda, but it's embarrassing for the UFC product to have their fighters earning more boxing YouTubers than winning titles. But that's for a slower news week, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
So, let's see. Did we want to talk about Joe Schilling? I don't even know what to call it.
This is going to be a little segment I'd like to call, You're Not That Guy, Pal. Trust me, you're not that guy.
Okay. You're not that guy, pal. Trust me, you're not that guy.
Okay, and each week, I'm sure we're not going to have to look too hard to find a guy who's not that guy. And unfortunately, to a skinny-looking, dishwashing-looking guy at a bar who had a few too many, he found out he was not that guy. And Joe Schilling, unfortunately, had to put him in his place. This is ridiculous at the end of the day. I mean, you're a longtime veteran kickboxer. no one looks at that guy and looks at Joe Schilling and thinks that, we don't know what would happen if they were to throw some hands. But unfortunately, if you guys haven't seen the video, and you got to wonder who's taking this video. It's all very odd, because at some point someone decided, oh, something interesting is going to happen. Let me hit record, and sure enough, this poor guy, and I will say he makes a little bit of a lunge, a little bit of a move at Joe, and Joe came out afterwards, said he was scared for his life.
Yeah,
if he was scared for his life, I got some bridges to sell you in Brooklyn. Poor guy took a cross from Schilling, and it was good night. And I highly doubt he's going to be messing with a guy wearing a fight shirt again, for that matter.
Yeah, it's a hard video to watch, honestly, because at the end of the day, Joe Schilling, as a trained fighter, you're not gonna be able to like get him to flinch by like a lunging or whatever sort of drunk thing that guy was doing, right? Joe Schilling knows the difference between a real punch and a feint. That dude, what he did doesn't even qualify as a feint. It was like a brief shoulder spasm, or like a middle school bully like making the nerds flinch. And like maybe that worked when he was in middle school with bullies, but obviously it's not going to work against someone like Joe Schilling. And the fact that he did that, the fact that Joe Schilling, even if you don't know who he is, he's 6'3", like probably 200 plus pounds off season, and this dude looked like he was 5'8", 5'9",
buck 60 soaking wet.
Right, yeah, and yeah, like built, yeah, buck 60 with a lot of weight he could have stood to cut. This is someone who posed no meaningful threat to Joe Schilling. And, as far as having the phone out, I'm sure this dude was just drunk and running his mouth in some Buffalo Wild Wings or something. And, don't get me wrong, we've all been there. We've all seen the drunk guy, and there's that little part of us that just wants to shut him up. But the difference is that, when you punch someone like that and you drop them, right, you might just knock them out and feel good about yourself, and they sort of dust themselves off and go home. But there's a subset of people that get severely injured, right? Especially,
Sure.
They're not hitting, they're not hitting the padded surface or the flexible surface of a cage or a ring. They're hitting potentially a concrete or wood. And
Yeah.
there's stories of people who die from just tripping and falling and hitting their head on concrete. So for someone as good and as knowledgeable as Joe Schilling to roll the dice and try to fight a stranger in a bar is just really embarrassing.
It's an indictment on him. But at the same time, I saw it came out that the guy was going to sue the establishment. Well, the establishment comes out and says, oh, this guy's a regular. He always comes in, gets way too drunk and causes problems, as if that's some sort of vindication on their part. Well, why are you giving this? Why are you serving this guy drinks? If he comes in and starts so much trouble and gets so drunk, why are you feeding him more alcohol? You're just waiting for something like this. So I'll be curious to see how this all plays out.
Yeah. I mean, it's almost unfortunate that it was noted fighter Joe Schilling, because now everybody and their brother is going to be involved, right? Like if it was like if it was like a fighter from your local gym that no one ever heard of, and some rando drunk guy and no one had their phone out, then this would probably be a situation like resolved by bouncers. Maybe somebody would call the like cops if they were around in the bar district, and the cops would come in and like wag their finger at them, right? But because now it's been recorded, because it's been picked up by the national media, right? This guy probably has a lawyer that is willing to work pro bono just to get some attention, right? The bar now is in the middle of this big hubbub, right? They have to get a lawyer in case this other dude sues. If you're a prosecutor, you see this video, people are tweeting about it, right? So now you've got to do something, because it's embarrassing for you to be on national TV not prosecuting this. So it's a worse outcome for everybody. Yeah. I don't see anybody winning as a result of this of this nonsense. Joe Schilling's career, because it was filmed, is now in jeopardy, right? I don't know. I don't know
left
if
of it, yeah.
yeah, which may be a blessing in disguise. I mean, Joe Schilling's taken a lot of blows, and his chin isn't what it used to be, really, in the cage, and in the ring.
Yeah, no doubt. And at the end, ultimately here, to this guy, if you're watching, you're not that guy, pal. Trust me, you're not that guy.
No.
Okay. Oh, that is the video of the summer, no doubt.
Oh, yeah. No, we got to splice that in. Yeah, okay. So what about old Gilbert Burns and Wonderboy? Do we want to move on to that?
Yeah, let's talk a little co-main event here. I think I looked up and down this card. I really looked into these fights, and I think the UFC has the placement just right. This is definitely the number 2 fight on this card. You got 2 veterans who really have to. The time is now or never for I think both of these guys. Wonderboy, he's 38 years old. Gilbert's 34, so it's weird that Gilbert's the younger guy here, but Wonderboy, I mean, if he's going to make a run, the time is now. He's on a 2-fight win streak. Obviously, Burns is coming off the title shot, the failed title shot against Kamaru. To me, this is a really good fight, and I'm really interested to see how these guys come out and how they game plan. I watched the first embedded episode last night, and I did like what I was hearing from Burns's team. They sound like they're focusing on a lot of lateral movement. They want Gilbert to be moving side to side to not be a standing target for Wonderboy. The problem is Wonderboy also has lateral movement, and he's not going to be standing still either. So I think you in a way you have a classic striker versus grappler, but man, I mean, Wonderboy has just fought a who's who of grapplers. I mean, his two fights with Tyron Woodley and Woodley's prime. I mean, Woodley had real trouble taking him down. There really hasn't been anyone to this point that's been able to take and hold Wonderboy down. And I don't know. I don't know that Burns is going to be able to do that. And he caught Kamaru with that overhand right, but this is Stephen Thompson. I mean, he's much longer. He plays the distance just so well, and I think he knows that a loss here could be the end of a potential title run for him. So I think I don't know. I just really think Wonderboy is gonna come into this fight with a really smart game plan and look to execute. And not to discredit Gilbert Burns here, but Burns has some wins. He's 6-1 in his last 7. So hats off to him in that regard. But with wins over grapplers like Woodley, Maya, Gunnar Nelson, those aren't Stephen Thompson level strikers. And while Thompson's 3-1 in his last 7, going back to 2016, it's crazy he's only had that many fights. But two wins in a row. Vicente Luque is an absolute killer, and the KO to Pettis was a crazy one. But I don't know. I'm feeling Thompson may get this one. What are you thinking, Paul?
Yeah, I think fundamentally, I have the same pick you do, right? I've got Thompson in this. I look at that Vicente Luque fight, and I see Thompson really just tooling up another Gilbert Burns style fighter, in the sense these are brawly, short, stocky jiu-jitsu specialists with really heavy hands who kind of sometimes seem to fall in love with them. And this is a pretty, I don't want to say tropey style, but it's kind of a trope almost in the UFC of this sort of fighter that, again, has great jiu-jitsu, knows if people don't want to come to the ground with them, and so they become just this fence-swinging ball of muscle. And Stephen Thompson has solved this problem and has been solving this problem for a big chunk of his UFC career. And I have yet to see the sort of striking from Gilbert Burns, right? For him to beat Thompson, he needs to have some phenomenal counter-striking. And that's not to say his coaches can't deliver that, right? That they can't get figure out Stephen Thompson's specific tells, go-to combinations, and get Gilbert Burns to just slip in on, that one combination, right? That one, weird kick
Overhand,
or whatever.
right.
Exactly. Find that pattern that shows up in all of Wonderboy's fights and exploit that. That's possible. It's possible for any fighter, but
Sure.
I just don't
for a 3-round fight. This is not 5 rounds, so for me it just increases the likelihood that Thompson's gonna stand on his outside, pick his shots, and I don't think he's gonna rush in. So that's why for me, I like to place a wager every now and then on an MMA fight. I must admit, and I got to say that it's interesting because I've been tracking these lines for the last couple of weeks or so, and Thompson was about a minus 135, 140 favorite for about 2 weeks out ago, and this past week somebody's been throwing down some cash because we're looking at Thompson sitting around minus 165 right now as the favorite. So, and lines can change leading up to the fight, and personally, I find it's better to wait until at least after weigh-ins, because for all a guy's going to weigh in and look like shit and barely be able to get off the scale, and you don't want to be picking that. Have already placed your money down on that guy. So my recommendation to everybody is just think about your fight, think about what you like, think about path to victory, which we've talked about some for both guys here, and I just see the most likely path to victory as Thompson being able to outlast Gilbert, to stay at range. If Gilbert does manage to land a big shot, I think Thompson can shake the cobwebs off quick enough. And does he want to get in a grappling competition with Gilbert? Definitely not. But man, I think Thompson's striking is just too crisp, too clean. And I also, the way that line's moving, I don't like to lay that much juice, especially on a guy these talented. So something that I'm looking at here is Thompson by decision. That'll get you back plus 145. So you're looking at about a $1.50 for your dollar. And for me, I'm going to lay a half unit on Thompson by decision. So for me, my units are about $100. So in this case, I'm going to throw $50 on Thompson by decision. And then looking at the rest of this card, I think my best bet here is I got a 2-fight parlay with a little bit of juice on both sides, but I think both of these are going to hit. The Irene Aldana fight, Yana Kunitskaya to go the distance. I hate to say it, but I love to bet the women's fights to go the distance. Unless you got Nunes in there or a couple other girls. Kunitskaya is a very big 135er. Aldana's a striker, so even if she cracks her, I think Kunitskaya can survive. That's at minus 320, so you can't just bet that straight up. So a parlay fodder piece I love is Ilia Topuria over Ryan Hall. Ryan Hall hasn't fought in 2 years. We love Ryan Hall. He's the man. Don't get me wrong. We can watch his grappling Inari rolls all day, but I just think this Ilia Topuria, he's a 10-1, 9-1, something like that. Georgian fighter, maybe even undefeated. I gotta look at that, but he's too athletic, he's too strong, he's too active. You're getting minus 250 on that, but you put those together and you got minus 119, and I'm willing to lay a little juice on that. I'm going to put the 1.19 units down to win 1 unit. So we're looking at $119 to win 100. So those are my plays for this card. Again, I'm going to wait until weigh-ins. If there's something I don't love, then I'll tweet it out. You guys can we'll post my Twitter. You guys can give me a follow. I'd love to follow back. We'll talk some fights, but yeah, that's my prediction. Where are you leaning with Thompson?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't. I don't know if I'd be willing to put up a decision. I just think that as the rounds erode, Thompson is so good with his positioning, he's so good with his striking, that it's not inconceivable that he is going to catch Gilbert Burns doing something stupid in the third round, right? Burns is going to get tired, and if he goes down on points 2 rounds, he's going to have to do something crazy and reckless. And that crazy and reckless will probably be, my guess would be to start diving for takedowns or lunging for big overhand strikes. And in either case, it's going to be him having to wade through Wonderboy's reach. So I don't think it's actually that inconceivable that Wonderboy connects late in the fight and puts him away. What I thought was interesting is actually Ryan Hall and Ilia Topuria. Ryan Hall has such a bizarre style that it's almost hard to prepare for him. He keeps beating BJ Penn is its own thing, right? BJ Penn has been washed up for a while and what should be happening is that BJ Penn should have been a commentator like 6 years ago, right? He's smart, his analysis would be good. Instead, he just keeps getting hit in the head and fighting strangers and taking fights he shouldn't have. So, fighting more strangers. So Ryan Hall beating up BJ Penn, okay, not a big deal. But Gray Maynard is a total legit wrestler. And admittedly, the fight was a while ago, but this was also when Gray Maynard was a lot more effective. And Ryan Hall managed to shut him down with those bizarre kicks and his ridiculous Imanari rolls. The problem is, where can you find another training partner that's going to simulate that for you? And if the answer is you really can't. There's only one Ryan Hall. You could get maybe like the Meow Brothers, but nobody fights MMA and brings that what's really a sport jiu-jitsu style into the cage, right? The idea of like Imanari rolls, attacking legs, diving on subs. This is something out of like sport jiu-jitsu, out of EBI and some of these other promotions that incentivize submission hunting. So I just can't ever be confident enough to put money against Ryan Hall. Definitely, he could definitely get knocked out for sure. Absolutely. And he's definitely older, but I don't know, it's tough to say. Like, he's someone who doesn't appear to have ground his body out a ton. He runs a school actually out here in Northern Virginia. So I don't know how much mileage he's accrued in his time off. And he may have just gotten better, right? The interesting thing about training is that striking is there's a cap on when you train striking. So, you can only get hit in the head so many times before you're not making yourself a better striker, you're taking away your chin, right? You're hurting yourself. And jiu-jitsu, if you have good training partners and you manage your volume a little bit, you can get better almost nonstop, right? Again, as long as your training partners aren't ripping subs on you, you can train a lot and get a lot better without, there's no like chin for you to wear out. Does that make sense?
Sure.
So it's tough to say it's really tough for me to say if where I think this is going to go, or for me to come down against Ryan Hall as much as the lines have him as an underdog. The other thing that's worth saying, in all the interviews I've watched with Ryan Hall, he has a just different mentality than a lot of fighters. I don't even know if he cares about fighting MMA. Like, I think he likes it, but I like, he doesn't seem right. Like, it's not like he's relocating to the Black Zillions or American Top Team, right? Again, I can drive to his school here in Northern Virginia. I don't even see that many of his like grapplers at like local tournaments. So it's tough for me to say what his training has been and like what his mentality is going into this fight. Again, in some ways, could be an asset. You have to have a weird headspace to Imanari roll BJ Penn, right, in an MMA fight. Or
throw heel kicks at Darren Elkins.
Yeah, right, exactly. Like, these like it's like he doesn't give a fuck, and that's what's carrying him in these fights, is that he just fights like someone who literally doesn't care. And like it's true, he doesn't care if he gets taken down for sure, because he'll be better on the ground than almost any active UFC fighter probably. But does he not care about being like a UFC fighter? Like I don't know. I don't know. He's definitely someone who's like, he's weird by jiu-jitsu standards, which is saying something.
Sure. Well, that's, we both have our takes on that. And I'll be excited to watch that fight, and we can break it down next week. So
yeah,
that'll definitely be exciting. But obviously, Paul, we all know what we're here for. We all know what's going down this weekend. It is Conor McGregor, Dustin Poirier, number 3 trilogy fight for all the marbles. Obviously, Conor McGregor has a featherweight win over Dustin, and knockout win. And now we have Dustin has got his revenge, UFC 257, with a TKO win of his own over Conor at lightweight, which I think is important to note. So this is a big fight, and this is a big fight for both guys. And I think this really sends both of these guys in one direction or the other for good almost in this fight. If Dustin loses this fight, he kind of lost everything that he's been working for, motherfucker. So I think this is commendable for him to take this fight. But as I think we'll discuss, there are a lot of reasons to like Dustin in this fight. And this is a must win for Conor. I mean, if you're a Conor McGregor fan from the last 4 or 5 years, you don't really know the Conor McGregor that came out and was just starching fools left and right. You've seen him kind of have mixed results. Conor's 3-3 since he's moved up from featherweight, and I just think I think him at featherweight was just such a perfect weight class. I mean, obviously he had to just absolutely kill his body to get down there, and when you're a millionaire 10 times over, you don't want to make that weight cut anymore. But he just had that size advantage, and I think that's really what propelled him. And even in the win over Dustin, that was a weird KO. I mean, he lands that hooking right, and it's almost his forearm that catches the top of the head.
I actually rewatched it several times to try to figure out what had happened. It was like a glancing blow, maybe to like the back of the head. It was really bizarre.
Yeah, so I hate to call that a fluke. It's certainly not. I mean, Conor obviously has proven his KO power at the weight class, but since moving up, he's 3-3. Dustin, since he's moved up from featherweight, is 7-2, and you see him on video, you see him in the cage. He is really filled out. His frame is it's huge, and he's really just taken to this lightweight division. I think he's just so well rounded. He's got the frame, the size, and it's a very interesting fight. And for me, I watched that last fight, and there's a couple of things that I took note of for sure. You definitely saw McGregor trying to throw a lot of straight punches, which is he incorporates a lot, but more so than this in that last fight, more than usual. It looked like he was determined that he was just going to stand in the pocket, throw 1-2s, land that big left, and I don't know. Dustin had a perfect game plan. I had forgotten that he had taken him down so early. He gets that takedown, and we all know Conor in the first 2 minutes, first 5 minutes of the fight is most dangerous. So that's when he's really got those power shots leading up. If Dustin's gonna win, I'm really thinking. I mean, and Mike Brown is just such a phenomenal coach. I got to think at ATT, they're telling him, hey, take this guy down. Don't stand and trade with him right to start. If you're gonna, side to side punches, that's fine, but don't look to get in the pocket with this guy right away.
Yeah. So I rewatched their second fight, and I actually found that Conor had this strategy where he appeared to be standing really wide, and he lunged forward. Like he had his shoulders very forward on his punches. He wanted to maximize his reach is what he appeared to be doing. And actually in the first round, it appeared like Conor was really landing almost at will. Poirier didn't seem to be able to understand the timing of Conor's strikes. Didn't appear to have great head movement. And, I mean, the first round looked like a Conor McGregor win despite the brief takedown. But what's interesting is that Poirier's strategy of grinding out Conor's legs paid huge dividends, because you can see by the second round, those unchecked kicks have already slowed Conor McGregor down just a little bit, right? But as soon as they did, Poirier's boxing, you watched his head movement show up, right? Suddenly he was slipping McGregor's punches right and left, and as soon as McGregor's punches stopped landing, Poirier could go headhunting. But it was really dramatic to see that shutting down Conor McGregor's legs, right? Because, again, he had that really bizarre, to me, it's like a horse stance, like something out of Taekwondo.
It's a boxing stance, really. I mean, that wide, you want to get your legs nice and wide so you can really sit down on those punches. But and I was just going to bring that up to you. I mean, there's no way he's going to be standing like that for this fight. I mean, there's just no way, because he was just staying in that pocket, not reacting to the low kicks. And it only took a couple. I mean, in my mind, I was thinking, Poirier landed a lot, but it was only a good 3 or 4 that really did the damage before you could see Conor just was not able to put pressure on that lead foot.
Yeah. And again, with that lunging style of punching, and this is probably a testament to Mike Brown. Like, it was no accident, because Conor loves lunging, that weight shifts onto that lead leg. And so if you knock out that lead leg, he can't lunge his punches forward. His punches start losing distance and they lose power. And yeah, I mean, I think I have concerns generally, right? Like you said, Mike Brown has coached so many elite top tier fighters in top tier fights against other like championship level fighters. In contrast, SBG Ireland and John Kavanagh have one elite fighter, Conor McGregor, right? Gunnar Nelson, you go, oh, Gunnar Nelson's there. Well, one, Gunnar Nelson isn't that elite. Two, he's at SBG Ireland, which just means that they're a franchise, right? I'm sure he flies in occasionally to train, but to me, you've got, at this level, you need to have day in, day out, a stable of killers. I mean, to me, that's the story of Kamaru Usman. He moved down to right, the Black Zillions, or is he? Yep. Moved down to the Black Zillions, and I remember watching some of his early embeddeds and just watching him and all the Black Zillions have these like grinding wrestling practices with just this insane intensity. And I was like, day in, day out, there's no way you can train like that and not get better. But it's not from flying at guys in, for a couple of weeks to be a sparring partner and flying them back out, right? You've just got to put in weeks with elite tier fighters. And I'm not sure Conor McGregor does that. And I'm not sure John Kavanagh has experience in thinking, right? Because he's got to ask himself, okay, right? You got to think like a chess player, right? He goes, okay, what's Mike Brown going to do? And what's he going to have Poirier do to counter the Conor McGregor that steps into the cage today? Because Mike Brown knows that Conor McGregor is not going to do the same thing and expect a different result. So he's going to say, okay, what's different Conor McGregor going to look like? And then from there, he's going to go, how do we stop this, the 2021 Conor McGregor? But I don't know if John Kavanagh is dynamic enough to like play that game at the level that someone like Mike Brown is, Again, Mike Brown, the guy who fought Uriah Faber 3 times, for the WEC belt. It's just the
Aldo,
level.
Benavidez, you name it.
Right, exactly. You're talking about just so much of a better pedigree as a coach. I kind of worry about Kavanagh getting the Ronda Rousey effect, where you have a superstar with immeasurable talent, so much talent that it compensates for the fact that you're a relatively middling coach, like her coach Edmund Tarzarian,
or whatever.
Right. His name is lost to history.
Head movement.
Movement.
Head movement.
Meanwhile, Ronda's head is completely static, a fixed point in space, unmoving as she throws punches from her shoulders like a Nordic track.
Hey, it worked up to that point.
I know, right? You the fact that you knocked out Bethe Correia and Kat Zingano is just incomprehensible to me at this point. But like you said, you got to be really good at one thing in MMA, and you can make a career out of it for sure.
Yeah, and it sounds like we're both kind of leaning Dustin here, but obviously, Connor still has a chance in this fight for sure, and I think it is going to be interesting to see what kind of game plan he comes out with. I think he's going to look to time that straight left cross, his rear cross, with Dustin's kicks a little bit. But the problem is those calf kicks, they're not the same as a traditional Muay Thai low leg kick. They're so quick. It's just that upward motion where you almost can't check them. If you're in the way of them, there's really no time to check those. So I don't know. I'm expecting Connor to kind of lean back on his kicks a little more. You look at his old fights, Dennis Seaver, he loved to throw those spinning back kicks. I don't know. I think he's just going to kind of come out like a bat out of hell, and in my mind, he almost knows I can't go 5 rounds with this guy. So I just see him kind of trying to unload. But if Dustin can keep a similar game plan as the last fight, I really see Dustin getting this into the second and third round, and it's just not the same when you're that size, when you're as big as Dustin is, and Connor doesn't have that big size advantage. Those shots, they just don't land the same way, and I think he's just gonna get frustrated by he's gonna land those big shots, and I mean Dustin, shit, he took a beating from Justin Gaethje, and I mean that guy's put almost everybody's lights out, and I don't know. I think Connor is gonna find himself in the second and third round and in a similar situation, maybe even the fourth. It could go that far, but I really just see Dustin coming in with a great game plan, using his size, using his all around MMA talent, his experience of sparring with guys who are just way more talented than the guys Connor's rolling with and going with. So for me, Paul, I'm thinking a third or fourth round TKO for Dustin. How do you see it playing out?
Yeah, I'd say about the same. Third or fourth round. That's usually when you see McGregor really start to wilt. I think it's actually more likely that you'd end up with a Khabib or Nate Diaz situation where an exhausted Conor either tries to take it to the ground or can't stop Dustin from taking it to the ground. And from there, Dustin just punishes him before he gives up,
Darce, maybe a little Darce.
I was thinking a head and arm choke, but I could see a Darce. Dustin's got some wins with the Darce. Yeah, but Conor turtles, does something stupid and gets tapped out for sure, and with a choke. Right? That's my prediction. Maybe take a look at. Should we take a look at the betting lines and then talk about some of the fight drama surrounding this, the social media drama?
Yeah, I was even going to say, I mean, I texted you about an hour ago. We saw McGregor put out a what we agree has to be a Photoshop tweet of Jolie Poirier trying to DM Connor on Instagram. And, I think it's just a sad attempt at Connor to try and bait Dustin into a slugfest, more or less. I mean, I think a few months ago he was tweeting something at him like, first one to shoot is a dusty bitch, something lame like that. And that's what he wants. He wants Dustin not to shoot. He wants Dustin not to grapple. He wants him to stand there and exchange power punches because he knows that's the best path to victory for him. And I mean, I watched Dustin say he hasn't been on social media for the last month, and even if he was, I just don't see him and his team and his experience and as a vet in the fight game just getting drawn into something like that, like Jose Aldo did. And it's kind of pathetic at this point. But I mean, McGregor, that's how he's always kind of done it, is his mental warfare, and this is just another dart.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny, Connor is such a great shit talker, but at the end of the day, this is not, for reasons I can't quite put my finger on, this feels like insecurity. And maybe it's like the guy who gets beat up on the street, in a bar fight or something, just viciously. Like the guy got knocked out by Joe Schilling, standing up and being like, "You're a bitch. You don't got shit. I fucked your mom." And it's just like, what do you're somehow embarrassing yourself worse because you got your ass kicked, right? And I think some of that is the Connor mystique is gone, right? Like, he got beat up by Nate Diaz, picked up a win Nick Diaz, picked up a win by, like, sort of playing it
Nate.
super cautious. Nate, oh, sorry. I'm losing my mind. And then got the brakes beat off him by Khabib, got the brakes beat off him by Dustin, and you're just like,
yeah, his lone win in the last 3-4 years is let's just be honest, over the hill Donald Cerrone. I mean,
yeah.
Cowboy is just looks like a worse and worse win for him as quick as it was. I mean, and Cowboys is a notorious slow starter. I mean, going into that fight, we all kind of knew, all right, this is sort of a pick me up fight for McGregor from the UFC here, and I'm surprised the UFC even wanted to make this fight, but I guess this is what Dustin wanted. Dustin obviously feels confident, and he knows if he wins this fight, the title shot's there for him. I mean, him and Oliveira would be a hell of a fight. At first, I was a little disappointed that wasn't the fight that's getting made, but I'm sure it's Dustin's call. I'm sure, and I hope he's getting paid big bucks for this. So hopefully, we're a little bit of Dustin fans, but irregardless, I mean, I think Dustin wins this fight, and the sky's the limit for him from there. McGregor, he's got to win this fight. It's win this fight or almost leave the UFC with your tail between your legs. I mean, I just can't see him fighting the mid-tier lightweights of this division or welterweights or whatever weight class he feels like fighting in.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that's interesting is that if you look at the top pay-per-views of all time for the UFC, McGregor headlines 3 of the top 3. And what's also interesting is that they're fairly recent, right? He took his loss to like, when he last fought Poirier, he had a couple, like, he had been, I don't want to say exposed, but he had his losses, right? The shine of Conor McGregor, the untouchable star, was gone, but people still paid to see him. And that's sort of interesting. I think it's a thing with MMA fans. Speaking of Kimbo at the earlier in the episode, Kimbo had the same effect. He lost fights, and people still tuned in the millions to watch him. And so I think the UFC honestly needs Conor McGregor, and for some reason, the fans will keep tuning in. Now, the real question, to me, in my mind, is, Conor McGregor just sold Proper 12 for millions and millions of dollars, and he made tens of millions boxing, Floyd. And I'm always just left with the question of what still motivates this guy. Like, why would you take all this brain damage? I mean, I think it's legacy. I think he wants his legacy back. And
he's so competitive.
But I'm just like, you have so much, right? You always said you wanted to be bigger than the sport. You became bigger than the sport, but you can't leave it. To me, I always ask the question, like, when you have hundreds of millions of dollars, which is probably what he has or could have, why are you motivated by making $300,000 for a non-title fight? Like, maybe he's coming back because he's like, hey, I'm going to win the belt. Khabib's gone. The guy I couldn't touch is gone, so I'm going to take the belt back and then retire with it. Maybe that's his vision, is to, like, leave on top and then be done. I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard to say, but I think on one end, if he had walked away after this last loss, I mean, that's kind of the taste everyone's left in their mouth. And if he loses this one, well, he just lost it to the same guy before. So in a way, it's almost like, what do you got to lose? If he wins this fight, now he won the trilogy. He doesn't have to give Dustin a rematch. He can say, I took 2 out of 3 against this guy. Give me an Oliveira, which, maybe wouldn't be a great matchup for him, or he could stick around and box Manny Pacquiao. I don't think Pacquiao is going to be interested if he loses it to Poirier again. So, this is really, like we said, make or break for Conor here. And I don't know. We loved watching his rise, the Diego Brandao fight. I mean, all those fights coming up were incredible. He's a captivating guy, and don't get me wrong, he's got a ton of skills, but I think he's run into a guy in Dustin Poirier here that's just too well-rounded, too tough, too big for this division, and this, for all we know, this could be the last McGregor fight.
Yeah, no, it's true. I mean, is it? Well, it could be. He could ride off into the sunset with his tail between his legs. I don't think he's capable of it. I think if he lost, he would want to at least go out on a win. I think he'd take one more against, like, maybe not a jobber, but like another aging name. Pick up a win, thank the UFC for their time, and go.
Finally get that Diego Sanchez fight.
Oh my God. Listen, I didn't say I wanted Conor McGregor to murder a helpless person, okay? Oh, man. I was watching some old Josh Fabia interviews today, and damn, that was
I don't know why you'd do something like that.
Because I love torturing myself. Obviously. Did we want to talk about Colby Covington's tweets from today? Not even gonna.
No, we can talk about it. I hate giving that guy the time of day, but yeah, he thought he was dropping something crazy on us with this. If you guys haven't seen it, there's about a 30-second video of Dustin sparring with a guy. Dustin's got headgear on, and the guy who we don't know, but later on, Dustin came out and said he was a pro fighter. But Colby leaked this video saying basically, here's Dustin KOing, standing KO a guy who's an amateur, and he lands an overhand right. The guy goes down, and Dustin's, he's leading up to a fight in this video, so he's excited about it. He's just trying to get himself in the mindset. And to me, there's nothing there. I mean, you go in and you spar with a guy like Dustin Poirier, you're gonna get dropped eventually at some point, and I'm sure that guy wishes he landed that same shot on Dustin and did the same thing. So, I mean, it's just another case of Colby Covington just trying to ruffle some feathers and get people talking about him, and here we are.
Yeah. No, it's true. And, I do want to make the point that one of the things that's really interesting in sort of all sports, any sports psychologist that I've ever read has talked about visualization and, like, imagining yourself executing your game plan against your opponent, visualizing the whole situation all the way through. And so part of it, right, if you're having these sparring matches, they may actually, as coaches may be like, okay, we're going to actually walk you to the cage from the locker room. We're going to actually play your entrance music, right? We're going to actually have you and your opponent, like maybe someone will ref or maybe someone from the octagon will yell out what the ref would yell, but really train your body to fight in something that feels like the real thing or the closest environment to the real thing. So if that's what you're trying to simulate, then yeah, as part of the confidence builder in your training, right? If you get a KO, then yes, you walk around, you throw your hands up, and you reinforce that positive visualization in your training. It looks weird, right, to see him KO somebody and then walk away and kind of put his hands up. But as an elite level athlete, I think that sort of realistic environment and visualization type of training is essential. So, and again, even if this guy is an amateur MMA fighter, right? If he's a Golden Gloves champ, then he's a great person to spar with Dustin, right? I mean, there's a lot of amateurs who are at the level to be sparring partners for pros in their dimension. A lot of jiu-jitsu brown and black belts or competitive jiu-jitsu players that will do groundwork and MMA work with elite pro fighters, even though they themselves might be just amateurs. So again, like you said, this is Colby Covington being a troll, right? Figuring out the media topic of the week and interjecting himself into it with a non-story. He's great at it. I give him credit. He's not that exciting a fighter, but manages to keep himself on everybody's lips by just being, Colby Covington, the asshole. Even though we all know it's an act, we still get ruffled up by it. Yeah.
No doubt. And further your point, I mean, no coach who is worth his weight is throwing in a guy. He doesn't want Dustin or any real fighter to spar with someone who's going to just get walloped by him. So, I mean, I don't have any doubt that this guy had a reason to be in there, had validity to be in there, and in my opinion, I mean, there's just nothing to see here.
Yeah. Oh, and talking, I mean, I was actually sort of, again, you did it, Colby. You got under my skin too. His comments about Dustin Poirier being like weak or whatever for wearing headgear. That might be the stupidest take of anyone, let alone a former UFC champ, current UFC champ. I don't know if he's still.
Who, Colby?
Yeah, didn't he win like an interim belt or something?
Yeah, he won, you know,
the
interim belt.
A former interim champ. Okay,
Yeah.
well, we've discussed what that means. But it's the stupidest take because Dustin Poirier needs to not get knocked out by Conor McGregor. And if you want to ensure that happens, you can't let him get knocked out in training. Definitely not the week of the fight. You probably shouldn't have it happen at all, ever, for any reason. But, you know, I'm just like, I'm shocked that that's even a thing you're thinking about. Like, you got to preserve your fighter's chin. And, like, if headgear's going to do that, then that dude should be wearing the Marshmallow Man suit, you know?
Yeah, and I mean, there's arguments out there that headgear really doesn't do all that much, and if in some instances almost makes the concussive blows even a little worse. So, I mean, it's all about a preference with headgear, and obviously, you know, there's potential for damage no matter what, whether you have that on or not. So, you know, I don't read too much into that. I'm sure if that guy wanted to wear headgear, he would have had it on. So. I mean, this is just a 30-second glimpse in things that happen every day in an MMA gym.
Yeah, totally agree. Non-story. So we got 4 minutes left. Do we want to cover the odds of the main event?
Yeah, and similar to Thompson, it's been interesting because, you know, leading up to the fight, it was about as close to a pick'em as you could get. I saw McGregor and Poirier both minus 110 at one point, but money's come in on Poirier. So, you know, we'll see where the line ends up. A lot of times you see casual fans are throwing 20, 50, $100 on McGregor just so they can yell at their TV, and that can sway the line, you know, in high volume rather than when the sharps come in and lay the big money. So it'll be interesting to see where the line ends up. If Dustin stays, I saw him sitting around about a minus 125. To McGregor, giving you a plus 105. So, you know, I think the implied odds there are about 55% Poirier, 45 Conor, which for me, I think there's a little value in Dustin there. I mean, I see him winning this fight 6 out of 10, 7 out of 10 times. So I don't know. I think at those lines, you got to consider a play on Dustin here.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how much value is there because, again, for me, the counter case, right, if I was to try to argue for a McGregor win, here's what I would say. I would say in the first round of their second fight, McGregor hit him at will. Poirier couldn't stop him. His head movement wasn't there. His defensive boxing never really showed up until he slowed McGregor down. And two, maybe there is something to Poirier rocking headgear. Maybe his coaches are worried about his chin. Maybe he did get tagged in training.
Who knows how old that video is?
Right. I mean, again, I'm not saying this is my stance. I'm saying this is how I would argue for a McGregor win. You know, I don't know. I don't know how much I think those odds sound about right. Honestly, I don't know if I find a ton of value there. But yeah. I also agree with you that late betting McGregor fanboys, especially after the weigh-in when the media frenzy is at its highest, will almost force the odds to change because there will be a big influx of dumb money, and then there may be some value.
Yeah, and I think one thing you could consider here with this fight, which I may do, is you're getting about 3-1 odds plus 300 on McGregor first round KO, and then for Dustin in those later third, fourth rounds, I mean, you're looking at anywhere from 7-1 all the way up to like 10, 11-1, depending on the round. So the fight's something like almost minus 500 to not go the distance. So the odds makers are telling us it's going to be a finish, which, you know, judging you got to agree with. But at that point, you got to think Conor, his best chance again at done is in that first round, maybe the second round. But you could definitely consider sprinkling a little bit on Conor early or maybe Dustin late.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I I'll be very curious to see how the odds go between weigh-ins and the actual fight and the bell. Right? I think you're going to see some really interesting changes as dumb money comes in, and as we get to see these fighters in their fight shape. Right? I think I'm really curious to see how McGregor looks, and I think that'll be a helpful indicator of how hard he's prepared for this matchup.
Yeah, I agree. Well, shit, man, this was awesome. This is just two brothers talking some fights. So
yeah, this was great, man. I really like this format. So the plan, actually, I'm gonna put this on YouTube probably first, because that's, I think, the best way to get the discovery. So YouTube commenters, man, let us know what your picks are and if you think the value is there. Also, after the fights, if anything we got wrong, which of course we didn't, we got it all right. But you can, mock us in the comments for our incorrect analysis. Other than that, make sure I'll have the link to your Twitter account in the description. I'll probably put my Instagram account, and maybe my other YouTube channels if you're into tabletop miniatures. And also let us know any topics you have for next week. Other than that, I think that's all I had. You have any parting shots?
No, let's enjoy these fights this weekend. So let's get our favorite beer, our favorite whiskey, and sit back, and it should be a good one.
Yeah, it will. All right, guys, thank you for tuning in, and we will see you next week.
We're out.
All right.